Hey, horror lovers. Two people, two faces of horror. One opened her home to a stranger and uncovered a graveyard of names beneath her floor. The other walked into a forest where the trees whispered her name and never walked out. These stories aren't just unsettling, they reveal how evil hides in silence and calls out from the dark. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, and let me know in the comments which story chilled you the most. Your support helps this channel grow. Let the horror begin. I didn't think much of it at first. Renting the spare room was supposed to help me get through a tough year. I had been laid off, my savings were running low, and I couldn't keep covering the mortgage on my own. So when a quiet, middle-aged man answered my listing, I didn't ask too many questions. He introduced himself as Mark. No last name, said he was between jobs and needed a short-term place to stay. Paid cash for the first 2 months in advance, a thick roll of bills, neat and clean. He didn't show me any ID, just said he'd rather keep things simple. I figured, in this economy, that wasn't the weirdest thing I'd seen. He moved in that evening. 1 duffel bag, 1 coat, and a heavy old suitcase that he wouldn't let me touch. At first, he kept to himself, ate at odd hours, left the house early, returned late. Always quiet, always polite. He never made eye contact. The room I rented him was upstairs across the hall from mine. Old wooden floors, a small window overlooking the back garden, and a door that squeaked if you didn't pull it slow. Sometimes I'd hear him pacing in the middle of the night. Slow, deliberate steps, back and forth, like he was measuring the room. He never brought anyone over. No calls, no mail, no packages. The only thing that changed in that room was the smell. By the 3rd week, something foul started drifting from under his door, like a mix of old metal and wet dirt. I assumed it was food. Maybe he was cooking strange things on that little hot plate I gave him. I didn't ask, but something else had started to bother me by then. My cat, June, refused to go near his door. She'd freeze at the top of the stairs, ears flat, fur standing up, and hiss for no reason. Then she'd bolt back down like something chased her. She was never like that before. One night around 2 a.m., I got up for water. As I passed the hallway, I noticed his door was slightly open. Just a crack, barely enough to see inside. The room was completely dark, but I swear I heard whispering. Not like a phone call or talking in his sleep. It was a one-sided whisper, rhythmic, like chanting. I couldn't make out the words. I leaned in closer, and then the door creaked wider, like someone had pulled it from inside. I backed away fast, heart racing. Waited. Nothing happened. No footsteps, no movement. Just silence. The next morning, his door was closed again. He left later that day, like usual. I watched from the front window. Same coat, same steady walk down the sidewalk. He never looked back. That was the last time I saw him. He didn't come home that night, or the next. After 3 days, I opened the door to check the room. It was empty, completely cleared out. No bag, no suitcase, no sign he had ever stayed. The sheets were folded. The drawer was closed, not a single fingerprint or hair left behind, except for the floorboards. There were fresh scratches near the far wall, long, deep gouges in the wood, like something heavy had been dragged across it. I moved the bed and noticed a loose panel. I pried it up, expecting to find water damage or maybe mice. Instead, I found names, carved into the subfloor beneath, one after the other, row by row. Names, dates, some going back decades. Most were first names, some were just initials. I recognized one. Elle Murray, the teenage girl who went missing from 2 streets over last year. Her poster had been on the telephone pole outside for 6 months. There were over 30 names under that floor. I called the police. I showed them everything. They searched the room, the house, even dug up the garden. They asked for a photo of the tenant. I didn't have one. No name, no ID, no paper trail. Even the cash he gave me had nothing unusual about it. They ran fingerprints from the door handle, nothing in any database. They kept asking if I made it all up, if maybe I carved the names myself. They didn't believe me. But a week later, they came back. Another house 3 blocks away, same type of rental setup. The owner went into the spare room after the tenant vanished, found the same thing. Dozens of names carved under the floor. The man had stayed there 2 years before me. Same duffel bag, same suitcase, paid in cash, vanished without a trace. Now they believed me, but they still couldn't find him. A few months passed. I tried to move on, tried to rent out the room again, but no one would take it. I finally boarded it up and stopped going upstairs. Then a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, aged and yellowed, typed. We keep their names close so they never fade. We move in silence, carry no weight. You offered a room, that was enough. Now the house remembers. There was no signature. I moved out 2 weeks later. Sold the house to a couple who never asked questions. But I think about it every time I see a listing for no ID required or cash accepted. Every time I see a missing persons poster with just a first name. I think about what was inside that suitcase and how many more names are still waiting to be carved. I never believed in haunted forests or cursed trails, not until I stepped into the Whispering Woods. The forest lies just past a forgotten stretch of highway between Marlow and Silver Hollow. No official trail signs, no camping sites, just a rusted fence and a gap where the trees pull back, as if reluctantly allowing passage. I had driven past it for years without a second thought, but things changed after I met Sarah. She was my sister's roommate, friendly, quiet, and one of those people who always had half a dozen nature photos saved on her phone. We weren't close, but I remembered her smile and how she once told me that the woods helped her feel less heavy. She disappeared last September. All they found was her car, parked just outside the old gate. I don't know why I couldn't let it go. Maybe it was because the search team gave up after 3 days. Maybe it was the note she left on her desk, a torn-out journal page that simply said, "It's calling me again." Whatever the reason, I went back to that forest 6 weeks after they stopped looking. It was early morning when I parked near the same rusted fence. The wind was still. The trees looked ordinary, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched before I even stepped inside. I followed what seemed to be a narrow animal path. The soil was soft, but there were no footprints, just scattered leaves and fallen branches. I called out her name a few times, feeling ridiculous. But the deeper I went, the quieter everything got. Not just the usual quiet you expect in the woods. There were no bird calls, no insects. Even my own breathing felt muffled. About 40 minutes in, I heard it. A voice, software clear, coming from my left. Eric, it was my name. Spoken plainly, no panic, no urgency. Just a calm, feminine voice, like someone was trying to get my attention. I stopped in my tracks. I didn't respond at first. I just looked around. Nobody. Then I heard it again, this time from behind me. Eric. It was closer. I turned sharply but saw only trees. Nothing moved. I know what you're thinking. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe it was a trick of the brain. But the thing is, I hadn't told anyone I was going into the forest, and the voice sounded exactly like Sarah's. I should have left. But curiosity, or maybe guilt, made me press on. After another 10 minutes, I stumbled across something strange. A jacket. Faded yellow, torn near the elbow, just lying against a tree. When I picked it up, I saw a patch sewn into the inside lining. Sarah's name was stitched into it. That's when I noticed the carvings. They were shallow and scattered across the bark of nearby trees. Names, dozens of them. Some carved carefully, others hurried, overlapping in strange angles. Most I didn't recognize, except one. Near the base of the tree with Sarah's jacket was the name Daniel M. Daniel Morales was a student who went missing in 2019. His disappearance barely made the news because it was assumed he ran away. I took a photo, and that's when I heard it again. Eric. This time it was directly in front of me. But what terrified me more than the voice itself was the fact that the leaves on the forest floor didn't rustle. No one had moved, but I felt breath, cold, just above my cheek. I started backing away, slowly. I didn't turn. I just moved in reverse, keeping my eyes forward, like something inside me knew not to look away. Eventually, I found the path again. I ran. Didn't care if I twisted my ankle. Just kept running until I reached the fence. When I got back home, I couldn't stop thinking about the carvings, so I went back online. Reddit threads, local forums, missing persons records. I started noticing a pattern. Nearly every person whose name I saw in the woods had vanished within a 20-mile radius over the last 15 years. None of them were ever found. Many were hikers or campers. Most of their last known locations were vague, except for one detail. Several families mentioned something odd their loved ones had said days before disappearing. They kept saying the forest was talking to them. I returned 2 more times after that. Not to chase voices, but to document the names. I compiled a list of 47 confirmed missing persons that matched what I found carved into the trees. Some had gone missing as far back as 2006. And then I noticed something else. On my 3rd visit, the tree where I first found Sarah's name had a new carving. Eric M. It was my name, carved clean and deep. Still fresh, the bark around it was lighter than the others. I haven't gone back since. The police didn't believe me. I emailed the photos, the map I made, the names. One officer called me and said I had an active imagination. But 3 weeks ago, I started hearing my name again. Not in the woods, in my apartment. It happens just after midnight. I turn off all the lights, lock the doors, but the voice still finds me. I wake up with dirt under my fingernails, even though I haven't left the house. And 2 days ago, a letter arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was a photo, a picture of me standing at the edge of the tree line. My back turned, and just behind me, barely visible in the shadows, was a tall, pale figure. No face, just smooth gray skin where the eyes should be. People still hike in the Whispering Woods. The forest isn't marked dangerous. There are no warning signs, no fences blocking the way anymore. But if you go, and it calls your name, don't answer.